So, this is my favorite pastry cookie on the face of the planet. This is what has been described in my family as it's been called the Hungarian nut horn, the Bavarian nut horn. Um, my mom even thought it was Swedish because we have blondes in our family, so it must be Swedish. The logic there is sketchy at best. Um, but this has been something that I've been making as an adult um, for a number of years. And just to give you an idea here, it is a swirl. It's a horn, but it's a swirl of walnuts um, and egg whites and a little bit of sugar and a lot of butter. And I started making these basically on Saturday, December 24th, around 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Started prepping at least. And I finished up around midnight or 1 o'clock. Um, it's normally a 2-day recipe. I did it in one. It's not recommended. Um, it's well worth it though. I had about 40 of these to begin with. I've given away almost the entirety of them because I can't be trusted around them. So this morning I had 6 left. I had 2 with my morning coffee, and they melt in your mouth. They just dissolve, basically. There's really nothing like them. So, anyway, the video is going to be a long one, but much like the preparation, it's worth it in the end. At least I hope. So, anyway, tune in. It's always sort of been in between a cookie and not a croissant. It's not a kolache. It's not a arugula. It's just sort of in between a pastry and a cookie. It is walnuts, sour cream, yeast, and lots of butter. And the butter is the star of this. So if you don't like butter, if you want to substitute margarine, just do a different cookie. The butter's the star. If you're gonna make this, go ahead and get the best butter you can afford. I'm not saying French butter you'd use for croissants or something, or croissant. But pick up something that you like the flavor of, basically. So like a Kerrygold or something along those lines where it's a great tasting butter and it's going to shine in this cookie. If you use margarine, it's going to taste like crap. So this recipe is going to be, it's my favorite thing. It's the one I remember when I was a kid, helping my mom and my grandmother. It is the one that I have, basically I make it the exact same way that they did, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. So hopefully you like it as well. 4 cups. So that is 600 grams of flour. Now to this, we are going to add some sugar. So 3 tablespoons. And just flat tablespoons, you don't need to be heaping. This recipe is not about the sweetness. About half a teaspoon of salt. Yeah, a little bit off. Okay. 2 cups. Four cups. And pick through these, make sure there's no dried up ones. These are going to be ground. So this is my grandmother's meat grinder, spice grinder, coffee grinder. This is from the LF&C New Britain, Connecticut company. The breadcrumb blade on it, which is it's not very fine at all, but it breaks down these walnuts into a nice consistency. Each of these have a different type of grind. I think these are duplicates here. This is the nut butter. So if you want to make peanut butter, which I'm going to be doing in a couple days, you don't have to have one of these to make this recipe, but it does help. All right, so I've got the breadcrumb gear on this, or teeth. I'll hook this up to a table later on. This is not stable enough. We'll put this to the side. We'll do the dough first. And I bought this little hand mixer here for this. I've always used the stand mixer with this recipe. So this is a new experience for me. So bear with me. Hopefully it doesn't go everywhere. As I scare the hell out of myself. Okay. I do tricks. So I've got the salt. Everything is in here. I still need the wet ingredients. And for that, I'm going to be using sour cream, which is what I can find here. And this stuff, it looks more like a mixture between like feta cheese and cottage cheese. It does not remind me of what I would find in the United States. Okay, so we want, which is half a pint. So I'm going to take part of the strong stuff here. I'm going to mix that with some sugar-free yogurt. So I get something closer akin to a consistency that you would have in the States for sour cream. I don't know if you can hear the explosions, but Mexico is celebrating Christmas. As I'm filming this, it is December 24th. So, to those that celebrate, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Halloween, whatever you celebrate. Yeah. All right, so we need 1 cup. Okay, to this we're going to add our yeast. And just finishing up this batch of yeast here. So, as a side note, this is the yeast I normally get, which is Fleischmann's instant dried yeast. It says specifically for sweet dough. Okay, this is a brand new brick. 450 grams, so it's about 1 pound. But they recently had this. And this is same exact stuff. Instant dry yeast. But it says specifically for savory dough. Which I've never seen the distinction for pastry yeast, or bread yeast, between sweet and savory. I've seen it for brewing. You have your wine yeast, you have your champagne yeast, you have your beer yeast, some that are good for ciders. But I've never seen bread yeast broken off into sweet and savory. So I'm not going to try that today. This is too much of a recipe already, but I'm going to experiment down the road and see what the results are going to be. Okay, so to our sour cream, we're going to add 1.5 tablespoons of yeast. So there's 1.5. All right, so I'm going to stir this into the sour cream. This butter has been sitting out for 28 hours. It's still very, very hard. So it is about 63 degrees in my apartment right now. So this is 225 grams. As I mentioned in my last video for the apple pie, I'm going by grams because if I go by sticks of butter, you end up with problems, especially here in Mexico. So this says 90 grams. A stick of butter in the United States is 113 grams. So if I were to make this recipe with 2 sticks of Mexican butter, suddenly I'm 46 grams off. That's half a stick of butter. It makes a big difference. So go by grams. This little scale here, this it's all of like, I think it was like $14, $18. So anyway, it's well worth getting. So that was 225, and I'm going to assume I just cut an ounce off, so 226. So I'm going to add the flour in slowly instead of one big clump. So a little bit of that. And some of our sour cream. Okay, separate the yolk from the white. Almost got in there with the yolk. All right, so yolk, whites, and these egg whites get saved off. And since I'm breaking this recipe up into 2 days, those will get covered and stored in the fridge overnight. I'll let them warm up for 45 minutes to an hour before I try to whip them. And we'll go from there. All right. Okay. That's a mess, but this is what we got. So go ahead and pop the beaters off. Clean that up, and then we'll work the rest of it together. Let it sit for a little while, and then we're going to roll out individual portions. It's about as good as I had. So, anyway. that's pretty much together now. It has the consistency of almost a pie dough. It's very cold. You can see the flakes of butter in it. And some of the sour cream is still incorporated. So roll these 1 ounce dough balls. Nothing too intense. All right, let's get this thing running. The interesting thing about this is the oil from the nuts actually kind of lubricates things, so it runs smoother. And the texture is fine. There's no giant, it's not like chunky peanut butter or anything. It's just soft. It's not gritty. Pretty easy. You see the blades get clogged, but cleanup is pretty simple. You can actually just take a piece of bread or ice and then grind the bread. It'll clear out the track. I've got 2 heels of bread here. We'll go ahead and see if this works. The bread has absorbed most of the oil. And that should pop out. I recently came across the instruction manual for this actual model online. So, new trick. And this thing is, I think it's 90 years old. And who would imagine that 90 years later, it would still be working just as well as it did the day it was made. Okay. Get a couple of these flattened out so you can crank. Do these quickly. These will roll out thinner than pie dough usually does. And easier too. Okay. Try to get them round, or rounder than I'm doing here. But you're only going to use a small bit. You can spread it out. It's counterintuitive how little actually goes into this. You would think, as big as they are at the end, that you would stuff them close to their final size. But the egg white expands and does the trick. Roll this tight, not too tight, but just tight enough that it holds together. And as it comes down to the end, you're going to pinch and roll. And that's your seam side down. Okay, just pinch those together, and that is your first nut horn. I have used the tortilla press. Kind of worked really well. I had a different one at the time. It was a wooden one. And it did a pretty good job. With the tortilla press, you have to use some plastic or parchment paper. So even if it does stick, it sticks to the paper. And there you go. And just to be clear, my mom would have probably said that this was too much. But this is really sticky, so it's difficult to spread out real thin. The problem with the tortilla press here is that it doesn't get it as flat as the rolling pin. When I used a wooden tortilla press, it got it flatter. So it might just be the equipment here. I don't want to break another one of these. I've broken 3 of these metal ones before. Yeah, the wooden ones are better, I think. You can get a little bit more leverage on them, then they give a little bit more. Just a real quick note here, my oven was not working correctly. It was either ramping up in temp It went from 350 to almost 500. And I kept having to open up the oven and try to cool things down as I was cooking this stuff. And at this point, it was about 10:30 to 11:30 at night, and it was just getting exhausting. So I soldiered through, but just know 350 is the correct temp. Just to note how much they puff. These were both the same size originally. Those are doubled in size. I want to show something here real quick. The difference, these 9, are when the oven was really hot. They're smaller, they've barely expanded, they cooked really quick, they've got a very dark bottom, and this was a very slower oven. Still have a dark bottom, but the top is not dried out. These turned out better, best of both worlds. Still too hot. This oven is not good. So 350, 375 tops. Last ones. So those look pretty good actually. Anyway, thank you for watching. This has been a long video, and hasta.